Hi, I'm back with another thrift haul. I actually thrifted this stuff yesterday, but I finally found the time to do it today. But I'm a bit tired, so I'm sorry if this looks a little rough. But yeah, I'll just get right into it. So first off, I'll go with the CDs I got. I went to the cave with some of my friends after I went to Goodwill, but I'll start off with that. And I hadn't been to the cave in a while, but I was kind of just, when I got there, I got more in the mood to look for some music, and the records were kind of expensive there, so I just looked at the CDs. The first thing I got were the Smiths album, Strange Ways, Here We Come. It was brand new, and it was in a shrink wrap, so I checked and it was a reissue, which I don't really mind at all. And it's great. I rarely see these out in the wild. I mean, sure, I could just order it online, but it was kind of a great experience to find it in the store. So I got it for about 15 bucks, 16 bucks brand new, which is probably the most expensive CD I bought. But I didn't mind it because I don't really see this out in the wild. And then the next thing I got was, I saw this, Brian Wilson Presents Smile. I think this one was $6, if I can remember. It just says it was a used CD. So I watched that music biopic called Love and Mercy, which is about Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. And after watching that, I'd listened to some of like the hits of the Beach Boys, but I hadn't really listened to a lot of the other albums. And man, that's when I really fell in love with Pet Sounds, which had influenced the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album. And that biopic covers two periods of Brian Wilson's time. And that was during the creation of Pet Sounds, and then also later in life when he's under that psychiatrist guy, I don't remember his name, who kind of took advantage of him to just make a lot of music. But there was an album that Brian Wilson wanted to make and release, but he was forced to not release it. I forgot the exact story about that, but then he finally released it, and this was the one. And since he's passed fairly recently, I thought it was a great find. And I only listened to this album once, so it's kind of great to own this on CD and with the cool like case and all that, and in pretty good condition for a used CD. So there's that. So I'm excited to listen to that. I found this, I think, for $8. I'm mixing up some of the prices, but yeah, I usually don't even spend this much on CDs because usually the CDs I get are from Goodwill and they're about $2 to $4. But I was happy to splurge a little bit, as these were like in better condition and they were like sealed up in these plastic cases. So this was also a used CD, and I actually discovered this album fairly recently. I am a fan of the Lumineers. A lot of their albums are like great. I don't think I have a miss personally, but yeah, I hadn't listened to this album in full. I just knew like their first song on the album, Same Old Song. But I very quickly skimmed this album. It seemed like up my alley, and I put it in through the CD player, which I also thrifted from Goodwill. I'll get into that later. And it's great. And then the last CD I got from the cave is Belle and Sebastian, The Life Pursuit. So I'd listened to some singles of Belle and Sebastian. I think one of my favorites is The Boy in the Arab Strap, but I actually haven't really heard an album in full. And when I saw this was $5. And I guess the ones I'd grabbed from the cave, they kind of sorted like, the normal CD jewel cases, but these ones were like the paper. I've never actually had CDs like this, but they had these sealed up differently. And I was just going through those because I didn't really know how to sift through some CDs. But so this is one of these like special editions, I guess, and it's cool because they have like the CDs here, and then they have like kind of like a little book. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to flip like this, but yeah, it's like a little booklet, and it has like lyrics and stuff. And then it has a CD in the back for the live performance of this album at the BBC. And I thought that's cool. I kind of really do love the BBC performances because I'd listen to the Smiths BBC performances and those are great. Like, I love the version that they have for Back to the Old House, the John Peel session at the BBC. That is my favorite edition. So I kind of want to have Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths. But in general, I do want to have all of the Smiths albums because they all sound great. But yeah, I was excited to see that live BBC CD in here. I gave the first CD a listen. Sounds great. So I'm excited to listen to the live version. So that's all of the stuff I got from the cave. Next up is the stuff from Goodwill. In the record section, it was, well, let me describe my experience at the Goodwill first of all. So they had just reorganized everything and it looked great. I was so happy with what they did with the organization, especially because the three main places I look at are the books, the media, and the tech. The first place I actually went to was the tech section, but I'll get there later because there's more of a story there. But the next place I checked were the books. And I'll show the books I got in a second. And then the last place I checked was the CD section and like the DVD section, because I try to look for Blu-rays and 4Ks that I want to watch, because all of this I don't resell anything. I don't really thrift to resell. I thrift to like own. When I was moving from the book section to the media section, me and my buddies, we saw this guy hoarding a stack of like what seemed to be a bunch of Blu-ray discs and video games, which really broke our hearts because that's what we were looking for ourselves. And he had like a stack of CDs, and by the time me and my friends we were going through the media, all the good stuff was taken. There was like nothing really to take. But then I was sifting through the records, and my friends are more into the, I guess, late 70s and onwards music, and I can go back to like the 50s or 60s. And while I was sifting through, I happened to find, this is the only record I got there. It's The Mamas and the Papas Deliver. I actually really love that song Monday Monday. It's not on this album, unfortunately, but they have Dedicated to the One I Love and Boys and Girls Together, which those are my two favorite songs on here. And then I was listening to the record because every time I get a record from Goodwill, the first thing I do is if there's a shrink wrap on it, I get rid of it, keep important stickers from it, and I get like a new case, and then I get another separate inner sleeve for the record, and I clean the record. So I give it a whole treatment when I go home. And immediately after I do that, I put it on the turntable to test how good it sounds. It's really crackly, but you get what you get. But it plays, other than that, it plays well. And it was so funny because I was looking at the back of this, and right here it says Denny. Like they go over the star signs or the zodiac signs of each of the members of the Mamas and the Papas, and I thought that was pretty fun. But it was so crazy seeing this because that's when my birthday is, so that was pretty fun. Yeah, and the music sounds great, so I was really happy to find this. This one was for $4, which is actually the most expensive record I've gotten from Goodwill. Usually I get them for like $2. Next thing I'll go over is the CD player. So in my last video, I had an old CD player that our families had. Sorry, I'm looking up here because that's where my monitor is. But here, because that's the big one that was Black Phillips, I think. I could be wrong. I forgot the brand. That one's been in our family for a while. There was an issue with it where it was like opening, closing wrong. Like, I remember when I was little, like there was a point in time when we'd have family movie nights and we'd open it and then it would immediately close. And sometimes there was like this game we would play where it's like, could we get the CD in quick enough before it eats our hands? So I wanted to fix that issue. I fixed that issue, used it as my CD player for a bit, but I really wanted something to match my brushed aluminum setup because, here. So this receiver here, I got it on eBay, and this is from the 80s. But I love the brushed aluminum because it's giving like a 90s aesthetic. And so I wanted to match that. So I got a turntable also from the 80s. These are both made in Japan. I forgot if Sherwood is made in Japan, but they're pretty robust. They're from the 80s and they work great. I didn't have to do anything particularly to fix anything. The turntable just needed a new cartridge, and that was about it. But the cartridge was pretty expensive because they don't really make them in production anymore. But I managed to find one, and so that is also from the 80s, brushed aluminum. And so the black CD player I had, which was really chunky, it was about the size of the receiver. And so I was like, I really wanted to get a thinner CD player, and I was like, the best place I could go to get that is probably Goodwill. As I've been to this Goodwill before, and they usually always have CD players, and I've seen some of these floating around. There's a bunch of different models for the CD player, for a silver CD player in general. And I don't know, I just kind of gravitated towards the one I got, for no particular reason. I tested it at the electric test station, and it turned on, it opened and closed smoothly. The lights were all working, so I was like, you know what, I'll just take this home. And in the back of my head, I was curious if there were any issues with it, because, it was donated. So I brought it home, double checked to see if everything worked, because the lady at the counter said that if it doesn't work, I could return it for store credit. So I tested it again, and it worked. But then I was loading the CDs in, and none of them were being read. And I was a bit worried when that started happening. So I tested some CDs that I knew for sure had worked already, and those were also not being read. So I did a quick research. I popped the hood open. I cleaned the laser with a Q-tip, the laser that reads the disc, sealed it back up, and it worked. So now it reads the discs, and I'm very happy with my $15 CD player. It's also a DVD player, and it also plays those super audio CDs, SAC CDs, so that's kind of why I got it, I guess, because the other silver CD players didn't have that option. I don't have any SAC CDs, but some of my friends do, so yeah, there's always that option in case I happen to run into some and I get some. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that find. Finally, into the books. All the paperbacks are $2 at this Goodwill, and then the hardcovers are $3. And so I guess I'll just go in order of the stack. The first thing is Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Chronicles, plural. Loved Fahrenheit 451 when I was in high school. I also read through Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man, and I was a big fan of the short stories in there. And I think before I had passed up on this, but now I decided to give it a go, and for $2, couldn't really go wrong with that. So yeah, Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Looking forward to that. All right, and next up I got Ta-Nehisi Coates, I'm so sorry for mispronouncing that probably, Between the World and Me. I actually wanted to read his most recent book, The Message. I found this, and I don't really know too much about it. I just figured it was an influential work because I've seen this title floating around, and thought it'd be a good buy. And I really like the small form factor of this, so very easy to travel with. So looking forward to that. I was so happy to find The Remains of the Day. I actually thought I had this already, but I did not, because I track everything on Libib just to make sure I'm not buying any dupes when I'm thrifting. Because I have 2 other Ishiguro works. I have Never Let Me Go and The Orphan House something. I can't remember the exact title. And this was the book that the lady at the counter, she was looking through the titles of my books that I was getting, and she saw The Remains of the Day, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry for reading the book titles. I was like, there's nothing to be sorry about. That's totally fine. She's like, yeah, I've heard The Remains of the Day is a great read. And I was like, yeah, me too. And I really want to read this before I watch the movie, because I was about to do a whole James Ivory marathon, and I just started with A Room with a View, because I had read that book already before, years ago. And so watching the movie was a cool experience. And then he also did The Remains of the Day, and Howard's End. I don't know if there's a fourth one. I think he did Maurice as well. But I had watched Maurice already a while ago, not knowing that it was also a novel. So I guess that one doesn't count. But yeah, so once I get through this, I'll go watch the movie. So yeah, very much looking forward to this one because I've heard great things about that. This one is The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. I just know that she is an American writer of the American Gothic movement, and she did The Haunting of Hill House and We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I have no idea if that is included in the other stories part of this book, but I actually first heard of The Lottery because I was part of Quiz Bowl in high school, and I was kind of the person to do the art and literature categories for Quiz Bowl, and The Lottery came up a lot in our practices, so I kind of just know in general about literature through being that person that was assigned to generally know about literature. And so that is the only thing I know about it. And I think I had read the short story before in high school, if I'm remembering the right story. So yeah, I thought this was a cool pickup because I actually have never read anything besides what I think is The Lottery. So cool. Very much looking forward to that. I actually have watched We Have Always Lived in the Castle without knowing it was adapted from Shirley Jackson, and I think I watched part of The Haunting of Hill House that was adapted by, I'm forgetting the director's name, but it's on Netflix. But I never finished it, not for any reason, just because I forgot to finish it. But yeah, so hopefully if I get through that, maybe I'll have a more enjoyable time going through that series. Lastly, I picked up The Godfather by Mario? Yes, by Mario Puzo. Now, or maybe it's Puzo. It's not a double Z. I don't know. So I obviously know about the movie. I actually watched the first two with some friends. We wanted to get through all three. We just never found a time to convene to watch the third one. Even though I know it's not that good, I feel like, I would be doing the series justice by watching all three. And I knew later in life that this was actually a book series, but I hadn't watched the movies at that time when I learned that it was a book series. So I was kind of in the dark, generally just knowing about how much it had an influence on pop culture. So I totally forgot about the book, didn't ever think about it. And then I saw the worker who stocks books at the Goodwill, and he was going around through the different sections, since everything's really organized now, and just putting the books in their proper place. And right as I was leaving the book section, I saw him stock The Godfather, and I was so excited, but I had to play it really cool. I had to wait until he left and didn't see me and didn't notice that I kind of watched him put that on there, and I immediately grabbed it. And it's in pretty great condition, nothing's marked. I think it was a little creased, but I'm willing to take that because I actually don't really find this one out in the wild. I was pretty happy about that find. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching if you stuck around. And yeah, hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one.